Welcome back to the We Are Here podcast. I'm Paul.
And I'm Tony.
And today we're joined by Felicia Brown. Felicia is the behavior interventionist at Woodland School, and she has pioneered a mentoring program at Woodland that Tony and I are proud to be a part of. And so we are excited to have her today talking about support for education and for the next generation in our community, and really how unique of a community Woodland is.
Yeah, I have been, like Paul said, involved in the mentoring program. It's been an awesome thing to do. I can't wait for you guys to hear about it, and maybe you might want to get involved as well.
Yep.
We'll see. Enjoy this podcast, and we'll see you on the next one.
Welcome back to the We Are Here podcast. We're here today with Felicia Brown, who is behavior interventionist at Woodland School here in Streator, Illinois. And so we're happy to have you here with us today and talking about not only what you do as a behavior interventionist, but also we grew up together, and you grew up in the suburbs of Streator and
Kangley, the big suburb
on the west side. So you West Siders, and then I'm a South Sider, the south suburbs of Streator, but a Streator native who pioneered the Woodland mentoring program. I love that word, pioneered. I was
great.
Yes. Started a program that Tony and I are both a part of, and proud to be a part of out at Woodland, where I grew up, and so we're just happy to have you here, as to talk about that, but also you're an active member of our church. You do a lot of other things in the community, and so we'll talk about that a lot today as well. So let's just start. Tell us your story. Tell us about growing up in Streator or Kangley in the suburbs. Yeah. What memories do you have cherish, and how has Streator changed since you were a kid?
Sure. So like you said, I grew up here, lived here my entire life. Left to go to college, moved back to teach in Streator. And I would say one of the best things about Streator is that the community always comes together when there's a need that needs to be met.
Absolutely.
Whether that's fundraising or volunteering or just helping through schools and churches. I think that's one of the things that is the most special about Streator that you don't see in a lot of other bigger areas.
Sure.
Let alone just being able to go to the grocery store and run into people or your kids' coaches and things like that. So I would say that's one of the nicest things about Streator. And then as far as it's changed, I think especially over the last 5 to 10 years, the development of our main street and the small shops and boutiques and coffee shops, that has just been amazing to see. I remember growing up, and a lot of times people would be like, oh, there's nothing to do in Streator. Oh, it's terrible. And now it's like Main Street has become its own little destination place to be. And we love to show off the Blue-Eyed Rascal and More on Main and those boutiques when we have people come in from out of town, which is super fun. As far as memories, I played community sports growing up and was involved in different plays and shows through the high school. And I would say just the best part about being in Streator is I feel like as a child, I felt very safe and nurtured, and that I was able to grow up, I guess, sheltered from some of the things that other kiddos in bigger areas had to be a part of.
Sure. So you went off to school. Where'd you go to school? Do you mind sharing?
Yeah, I went to Olivet Nazarene University in Bourbonnais.
So about an hour away. And,
and got my undergrad in elementary education. Taught for a while, went back to school, got my special ed endorsement, and then a master's in autism spectrum disorder, and I'm now working on a master's in counseling.
Very nice. And taught, remind me if, I think you taught at Oakland?
I taught at Oakland Park, yep. And then
before that was Oakland Park Commons, it was a school there, and so taught there for a little while. And
yep, I taught there until they closed that building. Yeah. And then I was moved to North Lawn, and so I was there for 3 years. And then I applied at Woodland and got hired there to teach special education.
Yeah, very good. So So let's talk a little bit about that. Your career in education. What made you decide on education? Was there a moment, or was it just kind of you saw that this is something I can be passionate about or have a skill set for? What led you to
I don't think
education?
there was like a defining moment of like, oh, you're going to teach. For a while, I had considered the idea of going into healthcare, particularly doing like medical missions. And then I realized I couldn't really handle the sight of blood or bodily fluids. And I thought, that's probably not
It's a
the
good thing to
career
figure out
for
about
you.
yourself early on.
That's a problem. That's a problem.
Yeah, so that wasn't going to work. And so then I was like, well, what do I like to do? And I loved volunteering at camp over the summer and working with kids and even helping my mom teach Sunday school and things like that. And so I was like, well, let's look into education. And I would say through visiting different universities, it was Olivet's education program that fully drew me in and solidified that goal for me. And initially I thought I wanted to teach little people, as I say, like kindergarten, first, second. That is not what I do. I now work with all big people.
Teenagers, yeah.
Yes. Put me with the bigs all the time. And at Woodland, we are a little bit of a unique situation because we have preschool through seniors in high school. And so we have everyone. And I always say, like, I love to say good morning to the little people and then pass them on their way, but give me the big kids any day.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I started doing some practicum that I was in a couple different places and I was like, no, middle school is like my sweet spot. So now I work with junior high and high school.
Yeah.
And I taught junior high social studies and ELA for about a decade before I transitioned into this new role, what I do now.
Well, and just for our listeners that aren't from Streator, North Lawn is a junior high. So so you've kind of worked every step of the way.
I have.
Oakland is
It's elementary.
Elementary school. Junior high is North Lawn, and then Woodland is we say K through 12, but it's actually pre-K through 12 and smaller community, but all the grades together kind of make it a what is it? I think about 500 students, something like that.
Pushing 500. We're really excited about that.
It's good. So other than did anything in particular lead you to Woodland as that community? Did you? I mean, obviously you were aware of it, but you didn't go to Woodland. You went to Streator schools. But is there anything in particular that drew you there, or was it just this was an opportunity to kind of change what you were doing specifically in education, or?
Yeah, it was definitely an opportunity to change because it was around that time that I went and added a special education endorsement to my license. And the only positions for special education that were open at the time in my current district were for much younger children. Yeah. And again, I had already known that was not where I wanted to be. And so Woodland was close. I wouldn't have to commute a long distance. I knew that it was a much smaller school and had always heard wonderful things about the families at Woodland and the kids that were there. And so I actually was offered a position in Mendota and Woodland at the same time. And Woodland was much more appealing to me with only having to drive 10 minutes outside of town.
Closer
and so I just made the switch and I've been there ever since. And I don't have plans to leave anytime soon. And it's a unique community, but it is a wonderful environment. And now my children attend school there. And that adds a whole other layer of interesting fun for our family. But I would not want them anywhere else to attend school.
Well, and so I can speak to that because my mom worked at the school. My sister, she still does. My sister does as well. And so for us, that's where our family was all the time. And so, that's, I won't speak on behalf of your kids, but I would guess that they would say how neat it is to have, you and Tony, and your husband there.
My children love going to school together every day. Sometimes it's a little crazy having all five of us in one building.
It has challenges.
Yes. But overall, they absolutely love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And Woodland is it is a unique community. What makes it unique? What do you think? I mean, other than that being all the grades together in one place, but do you think there's anything else that...
There's this history of support that runs very deep within the rural community. And the principal that hired me said something that was very interesting. She said, because we're in all of these tiny little villages and towns, et cetera, that there's not one community center. And so therefore the school is the community center for the people. And I think that's very evident in how many people come out to sports games and different things that maybe don't have anybody attending Woodland, but like Woodland is their school and it's their community. And so we also have multiple generations of families, which is very interesting. Like their grandparents and great-grandparents and parents went there, and now the grandkids are going there. There's one family that has had someone in their family enrolled from the time Woodland started.
1950
yes,
something. Yeah, 1955
until now.
or whatever.
Like they've just always had descendants there, which I think is a really cool fact. So I think all of that really plays into the unique environment that it is. And we're also unique in the fact that all of our students are country kids, and it's a farm community. And so that is a little bit different than being in an urban area where people are kind of in big business or things like that. Sure. Most of our families work on farms or in something related to farming, whether that be through tractors or seed or supply or whatever.
Ag business, even agricultural supply. There's all sorts of. There's a whole economy that is literally formed around agriculture in our town, but specifically toward the south side of our town, especially. I would say, Grand Ridge is kind of a similar.
Yes.
But smaller, a little bit smaller pocket of that as well. And
I would say the other thing that makes us really unique too is the staff that we do have at Woodland. So lots of our staff actually attended Woodland and now work there, which is awesome because they have this innate, good feeling about Woodland because they grew up there, they went there, and so now they get to teach there, which I think is something that is unheard of in a lot of places. And the fact that our kids attend from preschool through high school also creates this really unique support system because if you have a favorite teacher in elementary school, it is not unheard of for our students in high school to even go down and say, oh, I need to say good morning to so-and-so because that's their favorite person. Yeah. The other really nice thing about that is that when a student is struggling, whether it's academically, socially, behaviorally, there's usually an adult in that building that they have a good, strong connection with that we can leverage to help them in whatever the situation is. And that is something that you don't have in most places.
You can't manufacture it. You can't. It is unique. And I'm not saying it doesn't exist anywhere else. I'm just saying it is unique in that you cannot just make that kind of community appear. It is something that has been built over generations and decades. And as an alum, I can say that I experienced that even 20 years ago. That was very much my experience growing up there as well. And so it's something to celebrate. I think it's something to celebrate and say hey, this may be, you may think this is an old, outdated model, but it's actually working really well for the students. It's not just good for the school district itself, for budgets and bottom line and all that stuff. It's good for the students. It is something that is beneficial to those kids. And so and we love kind of diving deeper into those elements of community here, that even within our larger community, we have these little pockets of community that are benefiting people, like a school.
And speaking of community, I even think about, now that I do have children there, it's so interesting because they feel connected to many of the junior high and high school kids because we have some Bigs and Littles programs set up. We have some high school helpers that can come in as classroom aides. We have a really great group of older kids that want the younger kids to be excited about school. And so they include them in things like homecoming week and dress up days and encourage them when they have their sports and clinics and things like that. And so that's really interesting too, that, my third and fourth graders can walk down the hallway and know most of the high school kids, which is so funny to me because I'm like, when do you even interact? But it's just how.
Just from school, yeah. They're just in the same building, and they see each other, and I mean, it's kind of hard to paint the picture if you haven't seen it. But yeah, imagine the end of the school day, and you've got in the high school wing, which is near the main office, and you've got lines of preschool kids, being walked to the bus, and they're seeing all these high schoolers, and yeah, they're being high schoolers. They're maybe goofing around a little bit, but I mean, when you're that little, those are those people are giants to you. They're celebrities. They're rock stars to you, kind of thing. And so it raises the bar a little bit, I think, for the older kids to say, okay, I've got to have my own stuff in order, so that I'm not.
And I would say for the most part, our bigger kids are very protective of the younger kids. I know a lot of times people will ask me, like, do they all ride the same buses? Yeah, they do. And we don't have issues with bullying or fighting or anything. A lot of times those big kids really take the little ones under their wing, especially at the beginning of the year when we have preschoolers or kindergartners who are crying or upset, leaving home. Like, they kind of pick a buddy and walk them into school, and they are very protective of those younger students.
And again, that is beneficial not just for the younger students, but also for the older students to have that responsibility. And to be able to get outside themselves and to see that, hey, this kid has needs, and I can meet those needs.
Yes.
So let's talk about the mentoring program, because this is, I mean, I'm excited to be able to share this with other people. So take us back to where that all started. It was kind of during COVID, right? Is that
it was
far enough back, or do we need to go? Was it further back than that?
No, I would say it was around that time.
Okay. So share the vision for it.
Yeah.
What was going on at the time?
It was totally crazy how it all came about, honestly. So because of the social emotional needs that COVID brought about, that schools all over the country are still dealing with, that kind of opened up a need for my position, to where I work with kiddos who have some big behaviors, whether those behaviors are things, a lot of what I see, honestly, is avoidant behavior, but it's all stemming from the isolation that they had for 2 years, just so many changes and different things like that. And so that really put me in a position to be able to create a program like this. And the summer before last school year, I was actually listening to a podcast about violence in schools, particularly school shooters. And it was from the Violence Project, who has studied and compiled all of this data on what influences school shootings and what would be some predictors of that. And one of the main things that they talk about over and over and over again is this idea of isolation. Yeah. That when kiddos feel isolated, particularly if they've had some history with school discipline that then isolates them from their peers because the peers want to distance themselves from that increases the chances of them perpetuating an act of violence on the school, on their community, their classmates, etc. And so we had a few incidences of not violence actually being perpetrated into our school, but kids talking about doing those things.
Yeah, threatening
And a lot of times I think it is this, I'm so upset, I'm so angry, I just want to lash out. And kids say things a lot of times they don't mean, but in today's world, we take all of those things very seriously. Right. And so, unfortunately, what that also does is it kind of creates this environment where in a small building, you're labeled a lot of times as somebody who gets in trouble or, somebody who isn't safe to be around. Being in a small community, people know everything that's going on, which has its benefits, but it also has its downfalls. And so a lot of times when parents, hear about things, they're like, hey, I want you to stay away from that student, which then creates this isolation.
Yeah.
So how do we combat that? Well, one of the things that this project said is that by creating relationships and giving kids a way to feel connected, it drastically reduces the chances of something like that happening.
Yeah.
One relationship, the benefit of just one solid relationship with somebody inside of the school or somebody that is connected to the school, just one can take those chances from super high to almost non-existent. And so I thought, okay, how do I meet that need? Because our kids have been isolated from, with COVID. The parents are overwhelmed trying to do e-learning and work and navigate COVID and masking. And then we went to hybrid, and then we were, testing weekly. And it was just a lot of stress in a very short amount of time. And for our families, especially, job changes and how they were working and job loss and all of those things really impact our students. And so I just remember sitting there one night after dealing with some kiddos that had, you could just tell were very isolated and were just looking for somebody to pay attention and, help me. And I was just like, how can we meet this need? And I thought, okay, I know that we have people in our community that always want to help kids or help schools, help other people. And I'm like, how can I make it so that I can take those people and connect them with kids who need a little extra support? And I am very blessed to have a superintendent at my school that is very supportive of our students and our school community. And so it was like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. And I messaged him and I said, I think we need to do a mentoring program. And I don't know how much it's going to cost or what it's going to look like, but I want your permission to pursue that. It was like, sure, no problem. Why are you working on this at 9 o'clock at night? And so I wrote up a proposal. I started researching what other school mentoring programs have looked like. And I started compiling a list of students, asking teachers, who would you think could benefit from this? And I kind of widened the parameters of, yes, kiddos who do tend to get in trouble, but also kids that have just been through a lot in their young lives. And students that maybe are doing their hardest, work, but just never feel like it's enough. Yeah. Or even kids that, maybe are just kind of flying under the radar. Mm-hmm. And I got a ton of names. And that gave me a point to start with for recruiting people. And then I thought, okay, who can come to me in the middle of the day? Well, people with flexible working schedules, people who are retired, and people who work for churches because it would be considered a community event. Yeah. And so I just started making a list of people and calling and pitching my idea of, I don't know exactly what this is going to look like, but here's what I do know. We will feed you lunch, not school lunch, because so many people ask me, school lunch? I'm like, no, we will feed you lunch from a restaurant. Yeah. It's going to take up an hour of your time a month. It'll be on Thursdays at the school. And we're just going to try and invest in some kids who need a little extra support. Yeah. And I was extremely shocked by the amount of people that told me yes. And I couldn't imagine that we would get it, up and running as soon as we did. But we started in October last year, which if you work in schools, you know that the beginning of the year through probably mid-September is very crazy. So this was adding a layer of that. It was much harder convincing the students than it was convincing the adults. The students were a little bit like, what are you going to have me do?
Yeah, that first meeting was a little quiet.
It was. I didn't sleep the night before. I had nightmares about it. It was a little rough. But now we're to the point where the kids know it's like the third Thursday of the month. They see me in the hallway and they're like, is it this week? What are we having for lunch? Is my person going to be there? They cannot wait.
They can't get enough of it. Yeah.
And it has allowed our students to create relationships with someone who is a positive influence, who is there solely to support them and not to judge them. Mm-hmm. And it gives them that extra person that can encourage them throughout their school journey.
Yeah. It's really taking so we talked earlier about what makes Woodland unique, and it's taking it, it's amplifying it in the lives of those kids. And I mean, the first meeting was quiet, but it was kind of to be expected,
Yes. But I will say I was shocked at how much the kids did interact that first
for
time.
sure. Yeah.
Because I was
It's not quiet anymore.
No.
Not at all. I mean, it's almost like, just to describe these mentor meetings, we get there and there's no hesitation. There's there's no starting bell. There's no, oh, well, it's, 12 o'clock. So everyone start talking now. It is from the moment you walk in, before you even walk in.
Yeah, it's also funny because you get there and, people are coming from their jobs and things. So sometimes people come a little bit late or
Sure.
whatever. And so you're sitting at a table. So I'm with my mentee, and there's usually 1 to 2 others at the table, and maybe one of the mentors is a little bit late or whatever, and the kid is kind of quiet, because it's awkward because you don't really know the other people, and they're so quiet. And the second the mentor walks in the door, it's
just,
like a light bulb goes off,
like
and
a
they're
switch.
like, "Oh, hey!" And then they're talking, like crazy. And so the relationship that's being built just an hour a month, has been incredible to see, not only in the life of me and my mentee, but just to see it with the other groups and other couples. It's been really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So remind me, how many were there? Do you remember how many we had the first? I think it was...
I want to say the first meeting I was able to have 17, because my
Okay.
goal was 10 to 15 and I was able to have 17. And this year we are up to about 32 pairings.
I thought we were about 30, 30 or so students, with their mentees.
What happens
mentors.
when we outgrow the library?
And we are very close
We're very
to that
close to that,
point.
yeah.
So eventually what I would love to do is I would love to have really 2 mentor programs and have a junior high based program and a high school based program. And I had originally thought about starting that this year, but the problem was that so many of my junior high kids that were in it last year all of a sudden became high schoolers. And so the kids that I, could add this year, I'm like, well, our junior high program would be really tiny and our high school one would still be ginormous.
Yeah.
So yes, but the eventual plan is to be able to split that. And so that we would have a full junior high program and a full high school program. And part of that is adding more mentors.
Right.
And I realize it's hard to ask somebody to come in the middle of the day, on a Thursday. And so just finding people who are available and willing and will, make that monthly commitment.
So this isn't on here, but let's talk about what makes a mentor. So just so that maybe if our people in our audience will listen and think, well, I want to do that. What do you look for in a mentor? Just so that we can be clear on, you have to be available.
Yes.
Right. You have to have the time and be consistent. It can't be show up one month, not show up another month. You've got, if you want to be a mentor, you have to put the time in. You have to be willing to give up that time. So what are some of the other things that you considered when you look for mentors?
I also look for adults that have been out of high school for a couple years. So if I would say mid-20s and older, just because I want them to be far enough removed from our high school students that it's a true mentor relationship. I look for people that have all kinds of unique and different interests, because I have students that have all kinds of unique and different interests. And I look for people who are willing to just listen to kids without being judgmental or looking down on them or making them feel bad. Just people who are willing to encourage students and listen to their stories and all their quirkiness and things like that, and just really encourage them to be the best version of themselves.
Right. Yeah. This just came to mind while you were talking about not judging. Right. So we're not there to fix them. That's not the goal. This is going to sound quirky, but you're there to help them find who they are, and figure out, how do I relate with the world based on who I am? And I think that's really more of what mentoring is. You're not there to fix this kid and all their problems.
Right.
You're there to help them learn how to walk among other people and be a part of a community. I think is really what it comes down to. Anything else that comes to mind as far as
I think people that are willing to have somewhat uncomfortable conversations, and not extreme by any means, but one of the things we did this year was I had all of the kids with their mentor set some goals for the school year. And so each month we check in on those goals. And sometimes the mentor has to be, and this is where it could be uncomfortable, like, okay, your goal was that you were going to have passing grades and you're not turning that homework in. Like, what's going on? And for some people that can be a little bit uncomfortable, but I would say our mentors do a great job of, asking the questions and listening to the kids and then coming together and making a plan. Like, how can we do that? And it's also so funny to me because some of our mentors like to sweeten the deal a little bit and kind of, I call it an incentive, but it's a bribe. Like, if you bring this grade up, next mentor meeting, I will bring you Starbucks.
Yeah.
Or if you turn in your homework, the next time I see you, I'll bring you a case of Dr. Pepper. And it's just funny because it works. Like, it's something so small, but it has worked for several of our kids that are like, and they don't want to disappoint their mentor.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it doesn't matter if their teacher's talking to them, the admin's talking to them, I'm talking to them, but if their mentor is going to check in on them, they don't want to disappoint them. And so they've got to get that homework done and get that grade up.
Every month it's, hey, how's your trigonometry grade going? Well, and he said, I did this, and now I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I remember earlier this year we were going through the list of items, and one of the questions I think was something like, what are some things you struggle with that keeps you from being able to do your homework or whatever? And he was like, time management. I have a problem with time management. And then he later went on to say, and I'm going on a date, with this girl. And I said, all right, let's go back to this time management. So just being willing to say, that's awesome. Let's talk about time management when it comes to all of that. But fortunately, his girlfriend kicks him in the butt. So it's good.
Hey, love that.
I love, what was it, a few months ago? And you were using that to kind of, it's like, hey.
Yeah, make sure he does his trig homework. I told him that. I told him he needs to get
community.
on it.
That's what community is.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's so funny to me as well because when the mentors are there, like the kids will want to bring their friend or somebody else and be like, well, this is my person, or out and about in the community, mentors will tell me like, oh, I saw them with their mom and they ran up to me and were like, Mom, this is my mentor. Yeah. And I just think, a lot of times I think teenagers get a bad rap of like, they don't want to talk to anybody and they're disrespectful and disgruntled. And that's just not the case. And once you form a bond and a relationship with them, it makes a world of difference.
Well, more often than not, that's a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like they're that way because they want to keep everything at arm's length because they've been hurt.
Yeah.
So,
or they don't understand. Like it's a difference in generations. It's and you tend to fear what you don't know. Like how is this person going to react to me? I've had, like you said, they've been hurt before. I've had people react poorly to this. So, you know what? I'm not gonna even interact with it. And so it's a mystery until you start exploring what's really going on, what's beneath the surface. So yeah, absolutely.
And you talk about different generations and even going back to what we look for in mentors. I have a lot of older retired adults in my program. And I remember their hesitation was, I don't know if any teenager is going to want to talk to me or be with me, or, what if they don't like the fact that they got paired with, this was their words, an old lady. And I said, I think.
How did that work out? Yeah.
And now they are like two peas in a pod and they, talk. And so I just think that no matter what age you are, there's always something you can do for your community to improve it.
Absolutely.
Even if it's sitting for an hour a month and talking to a student, that has had profound impacts on the students. Yep. So you're not too old, you're not too boring, you're not to anything, there is a place for you to volunteer.
Absolutely.
I think the greatest thing about being a mentor is you're not boring because you're trying to talk about what they want to talk about. Mm-hmm. Like, I want to hear what you like. I want to hear what you do. I want to hear what you're into. And so if you can do that, then it's not boring because they're being able, I like blah, I like this. I have no idea what that is. That's awesome.
Yes. And I try and pair up mentors with kids that have at least something in common. And so whether that's video games or music or even shopping or something along those sports even, just to give them kind of a starting point. And I will say it's been a pretty good mix of people that I have been able to find, like, okay, you really like Star Wars and you really like video games. And you were saying earlier, it's not quiet now. I think it's more of, I have to stop them from talking to give any instruction, stop my pairing so that they can focus on the task for that day, than it is a struggle of getting them to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Which has been a shift.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's been a shift over the past 2 years to get to that, but it's awesome.
It's great.
Because it was at the beginning like, oh, good, I'm glad we have all these papers that we can go through and talk about, and because that opened up the door to be able to just come in now and just start talking.
Yeah, absolutely.
We just start going.
So let's back out, just I guess kind of back out a little bit and talk about some of the needs. So for students in the program, without, obviously we can't. There's some confidential things we can't share. But,
Sure.
So what are some of the needs that you've seen met through this program specifically for kids? Obviously, without breaking confidence.
I think having a lot of our kids need cheerleaders.
Yeah.
It's hard to be a parent.
Yeah.
And we're also in a very interesting situation in that many of our students have actually lost a parent to death, which, being a small community, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking no matter what. But the amount of students we have that have had parents die from the time they've been in school is just astonishing.
Yeah.
And so having that extra person, again, not to replace or, try to change anything, but just another cheerleader, I would say has been a huge benefit.
Yeah.
And I think another need that has been met is academic, in that some of our kids that are just kind of, barely scraping by, barely putting in an A effort, they don't see a reason to, do school or anything else, that this has kind of given them some, I guess, future ideas of what to do, whether it's, okay, I know I don't want to do this geometry homework, but getting good grades now is going to set me up for something in the future. And this is a person who's not a teacher, who doesn't work for the school, who's telling me, yeah, I hated geometry too, but you got to get through that so you can get on to the next thing.
Yep.
And I would also say that our kids who have been a little bit more ostracized are starting to feel like they are a part of something. Yes, they're in the mentor program, but then there's other kids who are in the mentor program. And so they talk about the things that we do.
Yeah.
And they know that there is someone that they can talk to about anything and everything, that thinks that they are the most important person in that room for an hour.
Yeah.
And that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it's funny because I mentor a group of guys, and so when I'm out there, you'll have other kids come up, and it's like, can I join you guys? Like, can I be a part of this too? And it's like, well, you have to talk to Mrs. Brown, and you have to join the mentoring program, and it's almost, it's like, it's not I'm not saying it's a clique or a club or anything like that, but it doesn't cost anything to join, and anyone can be a part of it, right?
And that's a change too, right? Because initially, the kids were very hesitant to want to be involved. Now, the kids are like, "Can I do that? How do I get to be a part of that?"
Exactly. Yeah, I love seeing that, and so it has literally affected the whole community. One thing that and maybe this is jogging memory a little bit. I mean, we've literally seen careers started through this, and so again, I don't want to break any confidence or talk specifically about student, but that was amazing for me to watch, and I wasn't even a part of that specifically, but just seeing that happen through a mentor and a mentee, literally helping a student launch a career, through this program, and that mentor being willing to really go above and beyond, way above and beyond to help that happen. And
help with resumes and applying for things and using the connections that they had in the community to get a student interview, being willing to help with transportation to these interviews.
So many facets, it just so many aspects of helping that student and seeing, and I think I remember graduation last year, like, mentor was there, and it's just this was a celebration of like, okay, we've helped you get to this next step where you're able to get your own feet on the ground and have a foundation of your own that you can stand on.
And I would say that's one of the most amazing things about the program is that I ask for an hour a month, and my mentors are always willing to do more, whether that is showing up to a play that they're in or a sports game or they're getting an award for something or 8th grade graduation, high school graduation. People want to be there. They want to be supportive. They want to be cheerleaders for these kids.
Yeah, absolutely. So just kind of moving on a little bit, we talked about the benefits of a close-knit community and their families. What are some of the challenges in a small school? Obviously, budgets and finances and things like that, but anything else that comes to mind as far as challenges or roadblocks that maybe affect that community or could be a little bit different from a larger community setting that you can think of?
I would say that when something happens within our community, the entire community feels it. So whether someone is diagnosed with cancer or whether something tragic happens with an accident or things like that, like those are things that impact all of our students. And so that can be interesting as far as how the culture or the mood of the building is during those times. I would also say some of the challenges are providing opportunities for our students because we are smaller, especially as they get into high school. We have a great staff that and a great school counselor who has made a lot of partnerships with places like the Livingston Area Career Center and online schooling and things like that. But knowing that a lot of times these big high schools have all kinds of different programs, it can be hard for our kids who may not have those opportunities. And so it's finding ways to get those opportunities for our kids in order to set them up for future success.
So how do you think, as a community, so kind of backing out from just Woodland, as a community, the Streator area, how would you say we're doing supporting our kids as far as providing resources, as far as communicating between generations, things like that? I mean, how do you think we're doing overall? Do you think we're improving, or how have you seen that improve? Do you think there are other areas that we can improve in?
I think there is a big split. I think there are some people who want to invest in young people, want to support them, want to create opportunities for them. And then I think that there's this other group of people that's like, these kids need to get back to being respectful and listening to their elders and doing
back
all
in my
these
day,
things. Yes. And I always try and explain to people that kids are different. The world is different. They've had to adapt to things that you didn't have to adapt to. As far as what we can do to support them, I think one of the biggest things, honestly, is creating opportunities for relationships so that people actually know these kids and their stories, because it's really hard to judge somebody and be down on somebody when you know their story. And it's hard to, spew hate on social media when you know the people you're talking about and they're not just some ambiguous figure.
Yeah.
And so I think having ways for people to get involved, to volunteer, to work with kids on a one-to-one, small group basis is really the way to support our youth going forward.
Yeah.
And as far as the older kids go, like there are a lot of very talented people in our community.
Yeah.
Talented in, arts and with architecture and, farming and all kinds of things. And I think a lot of times adults think that they may not have anything to give to kids or who would benefit or learn from me, there's always something you can do to enrich a teenager's life.
Sure.
And,
Absolutely.
You may think that, I've just been a whatever for however many years. And you might think, oh, that's not very cool or interesting. Why would anybody like that? But there's a kid out there who thinks that your job as an electrician or, as a lineman or as a teacher or whatever you did is the coolest thing and would love to learn from you in that aspect.
So other than the mentoring program, how are you doing that? How are you helping remove those barriers? So for example, you mentioned somebody could have a whole life of a career. I think of, I won't name names, but we have a youth leader in our church who was a farmer, retired farmer. And now we started leading the junior high Bible study on Tuesday nights. So what are some other examples, or what are some other things that you're doing, you and your family are doing to work to remove those barriers and help in other ways? And so like you help out at church, there's some other places that just, share some of those things real quick.
And I think being involved in youth sports, community events that way, even attending things that are out in the community, like that the library puts on, or that, these wonderful volunteers put things on in the park all of the time. Volunteering your time for those things, being involved in those things connects you to the community and gives you opportunities to know people and to get to know their stories and to feel connected as a whole. And I think that goes a long way in kind of benefiting our community as a whole.
Well, you get the YMCA, you've got, like you said, the sports kind of surrounding soccer and baseball and community basketball and all sorts of other things, football. Yeah, there's so many opportunities. And I think the encouragement is, like you said earlier, you may have been a plumber, you may have been an electrician, you may have, a farmer for years and years and years. It doesn't matter that you've never done it before either.
Right.
There's always an opportunity to get started, and you're just building relationships. If you can build the relationships, like you said, that really impacts our community and builds it up. So, anything else you can think of, or that you just barriers you see, things you want to remove, or like what are some things that you want to work toward in the future? And it's kind of, if you could dream big, what would that look like? Yeah.
I would love to help other schools create a mentoring program similar to the one that we have, because I think all of the schools in our area could benefit from that.
I guess that's a good question. Are there any other schools close by that have anything like
Not
what Woodland
currently,
has?
no.
So, I mean, how far did you have to go to look?
Yeah,
to
a
find
lot of
something
the
that-
resources I found were even things from other states and schools all over the country, or that were more like national mentoring programs. So as far as like local Illinois things, we're kind of the only one.
Okay.
But even
Pioneer was an appropriate
that's right.
word then. Yes.
and I talk a lot about junior high and high school because that's, where I live. But even if you're like, oh, I'd really like to help out with younger kids, you would be amazed at what even being willing to go in and listen to a child read for an hour a week or an hour a month could do. And I know our elementary school teachers would love to have people that are just willing to come in and listen to a kid, sit with a kid, go over their math facts with them, help them go over their sight words. So if you're like, no, littles is where I would love to be, I can even hook you up with contacts in those districts, because there is a huge need for people to support our kids in academics, social, all of it, that if you want to see those positive changes, you've got to be a part of the solution.
Absolutely.
And I would say, a lot of times people look around and think, oh, the world is, just going down the toilet and it's horrible. And if you feel hopeless, the antidote to that is to be involved in something that changes it. Because it's really hard for me to look out at our mentoring groups each month and think, oh, the world is terrible.
Yeah.
Because as I'm listening and as I'm seeing, and you can't think that the world is horrible and awful if you are actively working to improve it.
I think that's great great message, great advice. Yeah, if you want to see things change, be the change. You know, if you want hope, then be a part of what brings that hope to people's lives. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for
thanks for
sharing
having
with
me.
us, and we of course are so proud to be a part of the program. So just kind of to wrap things up, is there a way people can reach out to you if they want to be a part of the mentoring program, or maybe if they're from a different community, like you said, that you could help them get in contact with those contacts at schools? I mean, I would say it could just be as simple as call your local school district and say,
Sure.
you know, hey, I want to volunteer. You're going to have to pass a background check. There's going to be like training and things that you're going to have to do. You know, just realize that, and that's just part of the I guess the price of entry, if you want to say.
Sure. Because we want to make sure our kids are safe,
Absolutely,
and that the people we are
absolutely.
bringing in are safe people for them to be around.
Yeah, but as far as contacting you or getting to be becoming a part of the mentoring program, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah. So if you are local, if you call Woodland and either ask for Mrs. Brown, or when you get to the main phone menu, you can dial extension 1313 and that'll take you right to my office, or emailing me, which is brownf@woodland5.net. Those are the best ways to get a hold of me.
All right, great. And we'll put those in the
Show notes.
description, in the show notes, so that people can find those too, the Woodland School number and all that. So, well, Felicia, thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's been a joy being a part of the mentoring program and talking about it here with you today. And we're just excited to see how it continues to grow and maybe even spread to other communities as well, because it's certainly benefiting ours. So thanks for what you do.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.